Every time anyone would ask for a recommendation of a foldable phone up until recently, I would hesitate to recommend the Galaxy Z Flip 3, its popularity notwithstanding. You know, I had a very bad experience with the battery life of the phone where the phone wouldn't even last me half a day of usage and I had to carry around a power bank inside my house. It's a joke. It's a joke. Don't go out in the comments saying, oh, but you could have found a power bank. Creative liberty, guys. So when Samsung announced the Galaxy Z Flip 4, all I wanted was this phone to have better battery life. With Samsung upgrading the battery to 3700 mAh inside the Z Flip 4, which is about 12% larger than the Z Flip 3, and the inclusion of Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which is a very power efficient chip based on TSMC's 4nm process, I was very hopeful. So does the Galaxy Z Flip 4 deliver on that front? Is it also good with respect to the upgrades? Well, my name is Ershad, you're watching Trakin Tech English. Let's unflip the Galaxy Z Flip 4 review, shall we? First things first, Samsung has shaved off a few millimeters from the Z Flip 3. The Z Flip 4 is now shorter and narrower, but the thickness remains the same whether it's folded or unfolded. But the weight has now gone up, also primarily because you've got a bigger battery inside. However, you won't be able to tell the difference when you hold these two phones in your hand side by side. However, one thing that's definitely changed from the Z Flip 4 is the texture and the material. The Z Flip 4 doesn't slip as much as the Z Flip 3 did. What's also redesigned is the hinge now. You get a slimmer, sturdier hinge with a reduced gap between the two folding halves itself. The crease is also less prominent now, both visually and to the touch as well. Now the hinge this time around also allows the upper half to sort of sit tight at almost any angle, very close to 180 degrees, but not exactly that. About 170 degrees, it sort of falls down. However, the rigidity of this hinge doesn't actually allow you to flip open the Galaxy Z Flip 4 in one swift motion. There's a lot of resistance and you have to exercise a lot of might for you to do this with ease. That's a lot of effort. But what do you prefer though? Do you prefer a looser hinge with less resistance so that you can do this with ease? Or do you prefer a much sturdier one? Now, if you ask me, I'd take the latter because it also offers IPX8 rating, which is fantastic because it makes the phone waterproof as well. And you know what? You still get this very satisfying thud when you slam it shut after a very angry call. So if you like the kind of videos that we make, don't forget to hit the red subscribe button to support us and the bell icon right next to it to get notified whenever we put out an awesome new tech video. Now the rest of the design includes a fingerprint scanner on the top half along with a volume rocker which sits above it. The fingerprint scanner is of course very fast to unlock the phone. You get a stereo speaker setup with a proper speaker at the bottom and the earpiece working as a second speaker, and therefore there's a proper channel imbalance between the left-right stereo setup. However, it still sounds loud and dynamic enough in my opinion. Why don't you guys take a listen to it right next to the Galaxy Z Fold 4. To close off the port situation, you get a Type-C port at the bottom which is not aligned properly symmetrically at the center, which could be triggering for some, I know that for a fact. See, the Galaxy Z Flip 4 is still in its 4th generation, a very unique clamshell form factor that stands apart from the regular candy bar design, especially its immediate competition like the iPhone 13 or even something like the Galaxy S22. For the number of Galaxy Z Flip 3s I've seen in many shows, including something like the awesome Extraordinary Attorney Woo on Netflix, you know that this phone and this form factor is actually very popular among folks, at least in South Korea, Samsung's home territory. It's sort of a lifestyle and fashion statement, one that even I love absolutely flaunting. In fact, even more than the Galaxy Z Fold 4. But that's not it though. You of course get the Galaxy Z Flip 4 in a bunch of funky colors, including this really nice lilac, lavender, whatever this color is called. And you also get a special bespoke edition for which Samsung charges more, but then gives you a set of customized, color variations, which of course will make you stand out even more. Now there are two displays on the Galaxy Z Flip 4 which are virtually unchanged from the Galaxy Z Flip 3. You get an outer display which is 1.9 inches in size, and you get an inner display which is about 6.7 inches in size. Now let's start with the outer display. It's a nice, crisp, bright, colorful AMOLED panel, but there's not a whole lot you can actually do with it. For example, you can see notifications, but you cannot type out a response because Samsung for some odd reason still doesn't provide you a keyboard on this display, because you also get a keyboard support on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro but not on the Galaxy Z Flip 4's outer display, which is kind of odd. Having said that, Samsung's added automated text responses and the fact that you can actually use your voice to send a text as well. And also you get a bunch of widgets like calendar, music, weather, etc. And the clock widget now has a few new faces as well. Apart from that, you've got a new SmartThings widget that helps you, operate your SmartThings devices from the outer display itself. And you can also set 3 of your favorite contacts on one of the widgets to directly call them from there itself, which is kind of pointless because all the contacts should be available. In any case, I didn't find much use for the cover screen and found myself not using it a whole lot either. The only time I found the cover display useful was when I was using it as a viewfinder for capturing pictures using the rear cameras. It is actually very handy because this time around Samsung has also gone ahead and given you the option to sort of change the aspect ratio and see the full view of the image itself, letting you frame yourself better. And apart from that, the portrait mode is also now available in cover screen preview, which is of course very useful. There's this feature in Samsung where you can show your palm and take a selfie. I exploited it a lot on the Galaxy Z Flip 4. Now coming to the inner display, the 6.7-inch panel has a very tall aspect ratio of 22:9, something that Samsung cannot avoid considering that's how the ID is actually constructed. However, Samsung definitely has reduced the size of the bezels this time around, giving you slightly more screen estate. Now this inner display is a fluid AMOLED 2X panel with 120Hz refresh rate support, and it's got variable refresh rate support as well, considering it's an LTPO panel, and it can go as low as 1 Hz and as high as 120 Hz as well. This is a very crisp, colorful and bright panel with great visibility outdoors and literally no color shift at angles either. And it goes without saying that the Galaxy Z Flip 4's inner display has support for HDR on Netflix and YouTube, and the HDR tuning is done pretty well too. The only issue I continue to have with the Galaxy Z Flip 4 was that Instagram still doesn't lend itself well to this aspect ratio. Stories have black bars on the top and the bottom. Sometimes Reels have cut out text. It's just a mess, but that's just an Instagram problem and not really a Galaxy Z Flip 4 problem. Now the camera setup, if you look at only the megapixels on offer, there's not really much that's changed from the Z Flip 3. You get a 12 megapixel primary camera, 12 megapixel ultra wide and a 10 megapixel selfie camera. But the primary camera has larger pixels now. You get a 1.8 micron pixel size compared to 1.4 micron pixel size on the Galaxy Z Flip 3. So the primary camera takes saturated images ready for social media sharing. What I noticed is that the reds, the blues and the greens are extremely shot up and elevated. You can see that clearly the skies weren't this blue and the greens weren't this green. The primary camera does capture very sharp pictures though, thanks to the larger pixel size, so that's a good thing. And the HDR performance has been improved now, but I still think that it can do better. The facial tones are not very accurate because of the color science veering towards oversaturation, and that was true for the Galaxy Z Fold 4 as well. I had specifically mentioned that. Low light pictures on the other hand are sharp by default. In most situations, I didn't even care for the night mode too much. The primary camera performance is definitely improved, but I would have liked it if Samsung had kept the color science close to natural like it does on the Galaxy S22 series. The ultra wide is pretty wide and the color science consistency is very good too, which is expected from Samsung's flagship processing. It is not very sharp at night though. Selfies are good even with the selfie camera, but I was using the Galaxy Z Flip 4's rear camera setup often for selfies, considering it was very easy to use it with the cover screen preview like I mentioned before. You can also record 4K 60fps videos using the primary camera. Samsung's video recording and audio quality is fantastic as usual. You get great HDR performance too. You can also shoot 4K 60fps videos using the selfie camera on the inner display, which is fantastic. The quality of footage and the stabilization is really good. But for some odd reason, it is limited to only 4K 30fps on the ultra wide, which is the same thing that we experienced on the Galaxy Z Fold 4. Overall, the camera performance on the Z Flip 4 has definitely improved from the Z Flip 3 for sure. It's definitely a better shooter now. Having said that, if camera performance itself is your priority, then you can look at Samsung's Galaxy S22 series instead, not only because you get natural color tones, but also primarily because you get a proper 3x optical zoom on the S22 and the S22 Plus. Now coming to the performance, the Galaxy Z Flip 4 has top of the line specs. You get Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, you get LPDDR5 RAM, and you get up to 256GB of UFS 3.1 storage as well. Unfortunately, the 512GB variant of this phone is not available in India, but for the US audiences out there, this is available in 512GB as well. All this tech spec of course helps the phone run smoothly in daily usage, whether you're browsing through the entire UI, whether you're doom scrolling on Instagram or Twitter, it just responds to your touch smoothly. But do not expect it to be the best tuned Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 for gaming. Because Samsung invariably throttles the performance, the idea here is to give you better battery life and less heating. The CPU throttle and 3D Mark Wildlife stress test scores are proof of that fact. The stability scores are actually very similar to what we saw on the Galaxy Z Fold 4 as well. Of course, Samsung's play out here is to optimize for power efficiency and not for performance. Having said that, funnily enough, the Galaxy Z Flip 4 can play Call of Duty at 120 FPS in low graphics, but I never really saw it touch 120 FPS because it throttles performance and it's mostly around the 88-90 FPS mark. But one thing I noticed in my testing of the Z Flip 4, and that completely took me by surprise, is the fact that Apex Legend actually had screen tearing on the Galaxy Z Flip 4. This is a phenomenon that I haven't seen in a long while in any gaming device, let alone a phone. So yeah, you can play games on the Z Flip 4, but only if you're playing it for short bursts like I generally do for about 10-15 minutes at max. Network performance was very good with great 4G plus connectivity all throughout my testing period, and the call quality through the earpiece was fantastic too. Literally no complaints whatsoever, and you get support for almost every single 5G band that you can think of. So it's 5G ready for India when 5G comes soon to our country. Finally, coming to the battery life. I know I've kept you guys waiting. So what's the verdict? Well, the Z Flip 4 definitely has far better battery life than the Z Flip 3, but it's still not as good as the candy bar phones like Samsung Galaxy S22 or the iPhone 13. So I got a screen on time of about 3 hours 30 minutes and 4 hours in my usage of the phone, whatever I did with it. And this is definitely better than the Z Flip 3 because whenever I use the Z Flip 3, I would struggle to get even 2 hours 30 minutes of screen on time. Now, this is my specific usage experience. This could be different for different people. Basically, I could stretch the Z Flip 4's battery for 1 day of usage. Unlike the Z Flip 3, which constantly gave me battery anxiety. If you ask me, Samsung should have actually added a 4000 mAh battery somehow, made it even thicker. I'm okay with that, but a bigger battery would have definitely helped the cause a lot. By the way, another good new addition to the Z Flip 4 is the fact that it supports 25 watt charging speeds compared to 15 watt on the Z Flip 3. I could charge the phone from 0 to 100 in 1 hour 26 minutes, which is pretty okay. And there's support for wireless charging as well for whatever it's worth, and of course support for reverse wireless charging as well, which means that you can plump your Galaxy Buds 2 Pro on this and it'll get charged. The Galaxy Z Flip 4 runs on One UI 4.1 based on Android 12. It's your basic clean install of One UI depending on whether you install all the other apps. You also get support for 4 years of software update and 5 years of security updates. Samsung's been doing very good with software updates, so that's definitely a good thing as well. So I've spoken about One UI extensively in my previous videos, but the one thing that the Z Flip 4 can definitely do differently than other Samsung phones is of course Flex Mode. Now you all are aware that Flex Mode works with default on certain apps where it has partnered with, for example, YouTube or Google Meet. But now with the launch of the Galaxy Z Flip 4, within the advanced settings and labs feature, you get a Flex Mode panel with a touchpad, which works with almost every single app out there. Essentially what you get is a mouse pointer and you can do a 2-finger scroll, which is somewhat handy, I would say, but I felt that in practical everyday usage I wasn't using it too much. See, truth be told, the Galaxy Z Flip 4 is an extremely incremental update over the Galaxy Z Flip 3, but it's still an important one because Samsung's mantra out here is why fix something which ain't broke. But if you look at the improvements Samsung has made to the battery life, to the charging speeds, and to some extent the primary camera performance as well, this phone becomes an easy recommendation for anyone who wants to get into foldables but doesn't want to spend as much for the Galaxy Z Fold 4 because of course that's far more expensive. And like I mentioned, for anyone in the Android ecosystem, among the sea of candy bar phones, the clamshell design is still very exciting. Just the fact that you can flip the phone should be reason enough for a lot of people to look past the downsides that are there with it. This is a nice lifestyle statement piece. But what about an iPhone user who's considering the latest iPhone 13 or the iPhone 14 compared to the Galaxy Z Flip 4? Well, it requires a radical shift in mindset, so maybe you might want to stick to your iPhones for now. Having said that, I'd say that the Galaxy Z Flip 4 is definitely the more interesting phone compared to the iPhone 13 for sure. And you know what? Anybody who buys a Z Flip 4 over an iPhone will probably love their phone for a couple of months longer because of that unique design and feel that you get with the Galaxy Z Flip 4. So do you guys like this phone? What do you think about it? Do let me know in the comment section below. Until next time, this is Arshad signing off. Keep tracking and stay safe.